If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, click the subscribe button for more interesting contents and extra point. Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of Arki Vlogs. So number one, we will talk about the components of a working drawing. So ano ang bumubuo sa isang set ng working drawing? Number two, we will also discuss the anatomy of a floor plan. So paano gumawa ng isang floor plan? What are the things to consider? So bear in mind that when doing your floor plan, we are regulated by the National Building Code of the Philippines, certain standards and guidelines. We will also be learning on how to apply the planning and designer standard in your floor plan. So ano rin ba yung basic drafting na kailangan doon sa floor plan? A residential area is a land use in which housing predominates as opposed to industrial and commercial areas. Housing may vary significantly between and through residential areas. These include single-family housing, multifamily residential, or mobile homes. Residential planning and design is regulated by a code which is the National Building Code of the Philippines. Residential, a zoning classification in which single-family dwellings and other types of dwelling units predominates. Its occupancy classification is under Group A. The divisions is A1, residential building structure for exclusive use of single-family occupants, and A2 is residential building for the exclusive use of non-leasing occupants not exceeding 10 persons. So residential is to density. The residential zone. So what are the residential zones? We have R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5. And for today, we will talk about R1. It's a low density, single detached, no firewalls, most restrictive residential zone, and then it's dwelling plus community facilities. So the R1 zone is your typical residential zone. Now, before we move on to the planning considerations, let's see the history of the evolution of the Philippine home. So this is from the MADE or Metro Bank Art and Design Excellence Facebook page. So first, we have the Bahay Kubo. The Bahay Kubo was the earliest form of vernacular architecture, found in various forms depending on location and cultural group. The Bahay Kubo was designed to adapt to the environment. It was built primarily with a single-use, multi-use space, while the space beneath served as storage. So, ito yung mga bahay na naka-stilts or naka-elevate siya from the ground. So, it's made of lightweight materials or abundant materials like nipa, anahaw, bamboo, and other lightweight materials abundant to the Philippine setting. Next is a pre-colonial type of the house, which is the Bahay na Bato. With the imposition of Spanish colonial rule came the transformation of the Bahay Kubo into the Bahay na Bato. Though called a stone house, much of the construction was made of wood, with only a masonry curtain wall surrounding the ground floor of the house. New spaces with particular uses were introduced, such as the living and dining rooms. Next is the chalet. The American obsession with sterility at the turn of the century manifested in the chalet. Among the innovations introduced were the widespread use of modern plumbing and sanitation. Wide balconies also became popular addition, while the space underneath the house was demoted to a low platform to prevent people from keeping animals under their homes. So, ito, nag-introduce na sila ng porch or the balconies para to mitigate the spread of cholera during those times. And in here, dito na rin nauuso yung closed planning. Nag-introduce na sila ng partition for quarantine and isolation because during the American time, nag-spread yung cholera pandemic. And then another prototype is the bungalow. A post-war reconstruction fulfilled the pressing need for housing with a bungalow. Following the popular suburban models in the US, this house type had a lower and wider building profile, with all domestic amenities on the same level, or which more private spaces such as bedrooms only slightly raised from the ground level. And the apartments. Apartments become popular in the later half of the 20th century as more people moved to the city. One type of apartment was the bliss housing, which were large complexes composed of mid-rise apartment blocks built in a vernacular style. The high ceilings and large windows of the units allowed for adequate ventilation. The open ground floor became garages and circulation areas in between residential blocks. So nauso ang apartments during the Marcos era. This is the brainchild of Imelda Marcos. So condominium. Now, during the modern day, ito na yung nauusong type of housing, which is a contemporary condominiums expand the concept of apartment by building higher and having more units per floor. High-rise living in the city center allows for better access to places of work and leisure. So yung condominium and subdivision planning is not under the National Building Code. May separate siyang law, which is the 957. Sabi dito, ang mga nauusong as of the modern time is your condominium and your villages or your housing. Now, sa residential, we also have yung styles na tinatawag from modern to tropical. You also have your California state style, your Mediterranean. You also have your country, and then the Asian vernacular. What are the planning considerations in your residential planning and design? Number 1 is to list down the requirements. 2 is read the project brief carefully and identify and interpret the problem. Next is to study the parameters of your site. Saan ka ba pwedeng mag-build? Ano yung hangganan ng lote? Paano siya kalaki? And so on and so forth. Number 3 is site analysis. You need to do a SWOT analysis. Ano yun? Strength. You need to see the strength of your site, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats. And then, titignan mo rin kung saan yung sand path, the wind path, the orientation, the nuisances, and views. Why are these important? Because it will affect the planning of your residences. You also need to consider the amihan, the habagat, the sunrise, and the sunset. Next is development controls. This one is more of the architectural side or the architect side of the planning process. Apply the minimum development requirements mandated by the PDD 96 or the National Building Code of the Philippines. In here, you are computing for the setbacks, the AMBF, the PSO, TOSL, and the USA-ISA. So setbacks. So you already learned this one in our previous lessons, the setbacks. The horizontal distance measured 90 degrees from the outermost face how the buildings are structured to the property lines. The AMBF and the MACA is already introduced in the previous lessons, and we also talk about the setbacks for a single detached housing, which is the front is 4.5 meters or 10 to 15 meters from road crown, and then for the sides is 2 meters. And I also introduced this concept to you in our previous lessons. Next consideration is space planning. So based on the Planning and Designer's Handbook, we need to consider one is the distribution of spaces, circulation, light and ventilation, sizes, areas, and shapes, orientation, zoning laws, height, utilities, location of doors and windows, and superstition and feng shui. So based on your reading, you learned about the superstitions and beliefs of the Filipino in construction or constructing a house. So first is you always start with a sketch or a line drawing. That's why we introduce artistic drawing or the freehand sketch during the earliest or the earlier parts of our course or our lessons, because you need to always start your idea with a sketch or line drawing. And this book is also helpful in your planning and designing process. We also have open plan and then the closed plan. So ang open plan, lacks partition. Pagpasok mo sa loob ng space, makikita mo agad lahat ng mga spaces, like from the living room, makikita mo agad yung dining and then the kitchen. Yung bedroom lang yung nakahiwalay. And for the closed plan naman, it's full of divisions or partition, meaning naka-divide siya by walls, every spaces. So that's the difference between an open plan and your closed plan. You also have yung tinatawag na active and the passive space. So ano ito? For example, a bedroom is a passive space and a kitchen is an active space. So the concept of anthropometrics is not new to you. We learned in our previous lessons also that when you are going to plan our residences, it should be based on the measurements of the human body or the end users of the building. And to better understand that, here's a video of it. What spaces do you actually need? So the spaces that you need in a residence is based on budget and based on the users also. But here are the basic spaces of residences. We need a carport, a living area, a bedroom, a dining, a kitchen, a toilet and bath, and then the service area. So here is an example bubble diagram of a residential unit. So what are the considerations in planning? You have 1. Rooms per human habitation, 6 square meters with a least dimension of 2. Yung pinakamaliit na space na pwede mong gawin. So sinabi niya doon, rooms for human habitation is dapat 6 square meters. Tapos yung pinakamaliit na dimension niya na pwede mong gamitin is 2 meters. And then for kitchens, we have 3 square meters. Yung least dimension na pwede mong gamitin is 1.5. And then your toilet and bath should be a minimum. Meaning, yun yung ng pinakamaliit. You can't go lower. You can't go lower. You can go higher, but you can't go lower with the minimum standard, which is the toilet and bath should be 1.2 square meters with a least dimension of 0.9. So, yung least dimension 0.9. So, 0.8 is not acceptable. It's already substandard. So, yun na yung pinakamababang dimension na pwede mong gamitin. It's 0.9. So, Section 805, 807, and 808 of the NBC states that ceiling heights for habitable room provided with artificial ventilation shall have ceiling heights not less than 2.4 meter measured from the floor to the ceiling, provided that for buildings of more than 1 story, the minimum height of the first story shall be 2.7 meters, and that for the second story, 2.4 meters, and the succeeding story shall have an unobstructed typical headroom clearance of not less than 2.10 meters above the finished floor. Above stated rooms with natural ventilation shall have a ceiling height of not less than 2.7 meters. Mezzanine floor shall have a clear ceiling height not less than 1.8 meters above and below it. Airspace requirement for habitable room is 14 cubic meters of airspace per person. Rooms of any use not provided with artificial ventilation, window opening shall be 10% of total floor area provided that such opening shall not be less than 1 square meter. So we have a carport. So the carport dimension should be considered. Car dimension should be considered. Methods of parking and turning radius, and then the minimum clearances. And we learned that it's very important when doing your plan, you need your steel tape measure and then your furniture template. So by using your furniture template, you will know if your space is enough or not. And when you're doing your floor plan, mas mainam if meron kang steel tape measure or metro. So what is the use of this one? So through this steel tape measure, you will be able to visualize the actual size of what you are putting in your drawing. So yung dimensions na nasa drawing mo, may imagine mo siya pag ginawa siya in actual. So you will be imagining what is 0.50 in actual and what is 1 meter in actual. So we learned in our previous chapters that space planning and the spaces that we created are mandated or governed by the dimensions of the human body. So through this one, may imagine mo if kasya ba yung tao doon sa space na ginawa mo. So that's the importance of this one. Because since you are not yet trained to do measure drawings, nahihirapan ba kayong mag-imagine kung ano yung measurement when applied to the real life? So definition of terms. Wall, a structural element used to divide or enclose and in building construction to form the periphery of a room or a building. So a load-bearing wall means A wall which supports any load other than its own weight. Non-load bearing wall is a wall which supports no load other than its own weight. And then a cross wall is a term which may be used synonymously with a partition. A curtain wall is the enclosing wall of an iron or steel framework or the non-bearing portion of an enclosed wall between piers. A dead wall is a wall without openings. A parapet wall is that part of any wall entirely above the roof line. And a party wall is a wall separating two or more buildings and used in common by the said buildings. Foundation wall is the portion of an enclosing wall below the first tier or floor joist. And a retaining wall is any wall used to resist the lateral displacement of any material, a subsurface wall built to resist the lateral pressure of internal loads. Next, we have abutment wall, a form of semi-permanent or permanent structure constructed along a property line, usually of masonry or reinforced concrete or other fire-rated material. Maximum height of 3.20 meters, 1.5 meters is solid, and 1.7 meters with opening. Maximum length is 7 meters or not exceeding 50% of the length. A firewall is a reinforced masonry or reinforced concrete separator with the appropriate fire resistive rating, and which shall be positioned between dwelling units or between building structures to maintain fire integrity of each building structure. So we learned in our previous lessons that a firewall should not be with openings, and it's purely concrete or purong buhos yung wall na ito. Kaya nga siya fire resistive. Road right-of-way or the RROW is a kind of public open space for the continuous flow of pedestrian and vehicular traffic that must be free from all forms of prohibited physical obstructions. So what is the difference between a carport and a garage? So a carport is open on two sides, while a garage is an enclosed space, meron siyang door. So typical ang garage sa mga US type homes. Dito sa Pilipinas, we use the carport. Meron open on sides, meron lang siyang roofing. The difference between a room and an area, a room is enclosed by 4 walls on all sides, while an area is an open space, usually. What is the difference between a toilet and bath and a powder room? So a toilet and bath consists of the lavatory or yung lababo or sink, the water closet or the inidoro, and then the shower area. While a powder room is the half bath, it only consists of the water closet and the lavatory. A balcony is a platform on the outside of a building enclosed by walls or balustrades supported by columns or console brackets. And a terrace is bigger than a balcony and has a roof covering. A lanai is this type of porch, comes from the Hawaii, and it sometimes found in areas with warm climates. It has a roof and can also have walls, but it's also open to the elements on at least one side. A veranda is a roof platform around the house, which is typical to the US setting. So a porch is a room or gallery located in front of an entrance of a building, while a foyer describes a space that usually connects the entrance to various other rooms. A vestibule is a passage, hall, or room between the outer door and the interior of a building, and a patio represents a living space outside your house, either a proper garden or a simple relaxing area covered or uncovered. The difference between a show kitchen versus the dirty kitchen is, a show kitchen is for special purposes or where cooking involves light works. And the dirty kitchen is a part in a Filipino house where everyday cooking is done. So, dirty kitchen siya tinatawag kasi it involves the use of wood for cooking or charcoal for cooking, kaya nga siya dirty in a sense. Ginagamitan siya ng it's also a place for grilling. So another elements of the residential plans is the doors and windows. We have different types of doors. We have the single swing door, the double swing door, the bifolding door, the pocket sliding door, the bypass sliding door, the surface sliding door, and then the archway wall opening. And you will see in the slides on how you represents door openings in the floor plan. Now we move on to the types of windows defined by operation. We have your fixed window, your casement, Double casement, single and double hung. Owning and hopper, ang difference nito, ang owning is fixed doon sa taas, and then yung hopper is fixed doon sa baba. So the downside of a hopper window, lalo na sa Pilipinas, is that yung the trajectory of the rain will seep into the inside of the house if bukas yung hopper window. So we also have the sliding and the jalousie, the pivot, the projected, the bay, and the bow windows. These are window combination ideas based on Toadstone. We have your fixed window, sliding door, and window combination. We have your fixed top hang window, and then the sliding over a fixed window, corner fixed sliding window. We have your fixed casement window, fixed top hung window, and then the sliding fixed window swing door, fixed casement window, and then the fixed sliding window, and then your jaws. So after you sketch your plan in a piece of paper and the elevation or the loop, you are now ready to finalize your drawing. So in here, I will simulate my drawing in AutoCAD, and I have in here a sample of a residential floor plan for a young bachelor. Bachelor meaning he's still single and mag-isa lang siyang maninirahan dito sa bahay nito. It's a bachelor spot. And what are the elements in here? You can see this one, the grids or the modules for the layouting of your columns. Meron ng columns dito. And then first one is the porch. So yun nga, the porch is introduced to entertain guests and strangers dito sa area na to para hindi na sila pupunta dito, pumapasok dito sa area for the family, because the residences is very private building, which is really catered or which is really designed for a certain person. So in this design, it's an open planning for this one. So pagpasok mo ng living area, so I use the term area because hindi siya enclosed on all four sides. So nakikita mo agad yung dining and then the kitchen or the nook. So this is the living area, the dining area. Makikita mo dito sa sa furniture niya is for tatluhan lang siya. And we have the nook. So pag umaga for breakfast, you can use this one kasi for light meals lang siya, instead of using this dining area. So the use of the furniture reflected in the floor plan is to determine if yung ginawa mong space is kakasya ba yung mga furniture. So itong mga furnitures na to, that the one in your furniture template is already scaled. Yun yung ng tamang sukat ng mga furniture na yun. So pag hindi siya kasya dun sa space na ginawa mo, it's wrong. So next one is the kitchen. So makikita mo itong triangle na to. Ito yung tinatawag na working triangle. So this is your refrigerator, papunta dun sa sink, and then ito yung range. So dapat meron silang relationship to each other, naka-triangle. And if mapapansin mo ito, naka-elevate siya, you can just see or you can already get the idea that this one is elevated through steps. So ang isang step kasi is equivalent to a 1 height of a shallow blocks. That's 0.20. It's 0.20, 40, and then 60. So it's elevated at least 0.60 from the natural grade line. So pag naglagay ka dito ng steps going up, you should also put steps in here going down. Kasi itong service area is pantay siya doon sa natural grade line usually. So what is a service area or service yard? Usually dito it's a multi-purpose area, an open area, drying yard or a backyard. Pwede dito magsampay, maglaba, mag-grill, a multi-purpose area. So we also introduce in here a patio for multi-purpose activities. This is the bedroom, and then the walk-in closet kung saan siya maglalagay ng damit. We have the lavatory. This is the water closet, tapos may bidet spray. We have a bathtub and then the shower dito. Tapos a powder room for guest. So, pag may guest, dito na lang siya. So, the floor plan also needs the window markings and then the door marks. And the dimensions, of course. So, a vanity area is parang mirror type kung saan siya pwedeng mag-prepare or mag-ayos ng kanyang sarili. So, in here, may mga nakadrawing akong boxes na may kanya-kanyang dimension. So, the minimum dimension for clearances para sa tao is 0.6. So, ito yung mga safe na dimension. 0.8, 1, 1.2, 1.5, and 1.8 para sa mga daanan ng tao. So, pag 1.2, pwedeng 2 tao yung dadaan. So, again, I have in here another configuration of a floor plan. Ito may carport na. So, ano usually yung size ng carport? Depende yun sa kung anong sasakyan ang gagamitin. It's actually 3 by 5. The safest. Pero kung SUV or van or mas malaking sasakyan yung ipapark dyan, dapat mas malaki din yung space na allotted. So, carport ang ginamit ko kasi hindi siya enclosed by walls. Open siya. Tapos, meron lang siyang roofing. So, dito sa porch area, this is actually 4 by 2. And then, ito, 0.30 yung steps. And yung width niya is 1.2. Tapos, naglagay lang ako ng plant box na yung width niya is 0.6. Para magsilbing buffer zone ito. So, the living area, the dining area, and the kitchen, naka-open plan siya. So, ito, nilagay ko yung carport dito and then the kitchen so that when you do groceries or pag namalengke ka ng mga wet products like fish or meat, hindi ka na dadaan doon sa living room mo. Diretso ka na sa kitchen, ilalagay mo na agad dito sa sink mo. And then, from the living area naman, makikita mo agad yung dining. Tapos, andito yung master's bedroom. Mas malaki siya kesa doon sa ordinary bedroom. And then, andito yung CR nila. So, yung CR nila, dito sa line drawing, yung minimum width niya is 1.2 yung ginamit ko. So, papunta doon, palabas is the service area. Punta doon sa drying yard or sa laundry area nila. And then, naglagay din ako ulit ng steps. Kasi nga, itong area na to is elevated. And then, this area is the NGL. So, ganun siya. And then, we have in here different drafting standards. So, makikita, nalaman nyo na yung doors and windows sa Pilipinas may tinatawag na commercial sizes. So, sa CR, gagamitin mo is the 0.60. And then, we have 0.8, 0.9, and then the 1 meter. Usually, ang 1 meter ginagamit sa main door. Like this one. Yan, 0.8, and then 0.6 for CR. Tapos, yung mga window naman is 1.2 by 1.2, yung usual. Tapos, ito, verify elevation. Yung usual niya na measure from the FFL is 1 meter or higher. Ito naman yung tinatawag na owning. Ito yung fixed window. You also learn this one, yung thickness ng mga walls. So, 0.20 pag outside. Tapos, 15 pag interior wall. Pag gypsum or drywall naman yung gagamitin is 0.10. Tapos, pag glass partition, ganyan siya. It's 0.05, 0.075. Tapos, least dimension ng column is 0.25. Tapos, yung mga furnitures. So, kung ano yung nasa furniture template nyo, tapos 1:100 yung scale ng floor plan, yun na yung mismong sukat ng actual na furniture. But for this one, may mga sukat ng single bed, twin bed, double size. So, ito din. So, pag floor plan, naka-top view siya lahat. Tapos, ito yung elevation view. Yan, yung dining. Meron siyang kasamang circulation. Tapos, ito yung open planning na sinasabi. Yan. That's the things that you need to consider when doing your drafting in a residential unit. So that's it. Malapit na tayong matapos dun sa topics natin for the whole semester. And for the next lecture video, we will talk about engineering infrastructures, introduction to computer-aided drawing and modeling. So see you next meeting!